I just watched The Last Starfighter, and this is a movie with astonishingly primitive special effects, a small town setting that is just heavy with bad 1980s cliches. So, my views on this movie are
It started with a game.
Centauri's the name. We have to talk about a matter of utmost importance. Step into my office.
For every Earthling who's ever imagined traveling beyond the stars comes the unforgettable story of one who made it. The Last Starfighter.
It's showtime.
Eric,
I'm here.
you watched what is one of my beloved childhood and beloved adult movies, The Last Starfighter.
That is true. I did watch The Last Starfighter.
I have been patiently waiting for you to come back and tell me what a fabulous, amazing movie this was for you. And the experience was mind-blowing.
I'll tell you what, I just watched The Last Starfighter, and this is a movie with astonishingly primitive special effects, a small town setting that is just heavy with bad 1980s cliches. So my views on this movie are, it was a ton of fun. The movie is terrific.
I legitimately thought you'd come back and say you actually enjoyed it.
Definitely a lot of fun. Do I think that this movie is sort of a hidden classic, a hidden essential film of the science fiction genre? No. But do I think it's a really great sort of cult classic of the era? Absolutely. It holds up far better than it has any right to, given very primitive early special effects. But here's the thing. I think those special effects hold up fantastic and far better than most computer-generated special effects from this point in time all the way up to The Abyss, which is when they sort of came into their own. I think the stripped-down nature of them works to their benefit.
I think it's the first movie that used all computer-generated special effects.
They look remarkably good for what they are. They look more like models. They look like models or toys. And so it was pretty easy for me to just sort of switch my head and look at them in the same way that you would models from previous eras. Plus, there were also some little touches that I was actually kind of surprised to see. Mm-hmm. If you look there, they actually was really good shadow use. Like when you see the ships rotating and so on, the shadows are moving in a relatively realistic way along the ship as well, which, you know, when I noticed, I was like, you know what, for 1984, that's pretty damn good.
There's a whole documentary, it's called Crossing the Frontier, Making the Last Starfighter, that chronicles like how they had to make this supercomputer just to generate all this stuff and how a large portion of the budget. And I'll put the link in below so if anybody wants to watch it. But it's crazy to look at it and think that was 1984.
Yeah, this way earlier than you would expect for effects of this kind, for all computer effects. I mean, I thought they looked really cool. They looked to me like sort of model toys that were being played with. And so for me, that was kind of delightful. There was a toy box factor to it that I really liked. And then when it came down to the actual practical effects, seeing Beta in its transformation was like really well done in that 80s style, very creepy.
Yeah, that creepy gory scene.
I'll be next door if you need anything, okay?
And the navigator, his co-pilot.
Yeah, Greg.
The makeup special effects were just fantastic. I would rather see that than the all CGI characters we see in so many movies today, because he looked great. I was like full on board. Most of the aliens looked good too, except for the assassin alien. They were a little too puppety.
Zandozans. Yeah, they just look like they're wearing a mask, basically.
Just for people who aren't familiar or who they need their memories jogged, Tig, why don't you bring people up to speed on what the hell The Last Starfighter is in the first place?
It's really about a small town kid who just wants to get out of his trailer park where he lives. He lived his whole life in a very small trailer park out west, and he wants to move out of there.
You guys think I'm gonna hang out here, watch you shine your pickup?
Forget it, man. I'm doing something with my life.
All he has to do at his park is basically play a video game. He gets the highest score. He basically beats the video game. A little time later, an alien shows up in a car saying that he invented the game, and all of a sudden he's thrust into the world, the real life world of the video game.
Excuse me, son. Centauri's the name. I invented Starfighter, which is why I'm here.
The arcade machine it was used as a recruitment tool. It was sort of a stealth recruitment tool.
The theme, the music, and everything that goes along with it. I just love the feel of the entire movie.
It is extremely 80s. It's very much of its era. I think that's one of the only things that holds it back from being a sort of an overlooked true classic of the genre as far as like important science fiction movies are concerned. But it doesn't prevent it from being fun. I did think, like, how on earth would the people in the trailer park know that this is like the record? It's not like arcade machines were all networks together.
This is what I feel like, because that specific scene you're talking about when he breaks the record and everybody from the town comes running and he's like, Alex is gonna break the record.
That ridiculous scene, incidentally. Like, yeah, the whole town is like, oh, he's gonna play a video game to break the record.
And
but,
I was gonna say I have two opinions on this, because the one is really corny. The whole thing, everybody shows up, they're cheering him on. But there's nothing going on in this town, and everybody knows Alex always plays the game. Their town is so boring. It's sort of representing how boring it is, and that this moment, even though it's so cheesy, is so exciting that he's finally like breaking the record. I think he was just breaking the record on the game. I know what you're saying. You mean in general, breaking the record for the games wherever they are.
Well, right, yeah, exactly. Because if he's just breaking like the local town record, well, that means that there's someone else there who was already a master at this.
I think it was he was breaking his own record. In the beginning when his girlfriend asks his mom where he is, and she says, "You know where he is."
So the town is treating him like a hero for basically just getting a little better at a video game.
I 100% agree that scene always makes me cringe because it's so silly.
But it doesn't detract from the movie. It's just a very silly scene. And your argument is a good one as far as like it sort of emphasizes the idea that they really are just in the middle of nowhere. It's just this little podunk town and nothing is happening there. So even just some kid being good at a video game is enough to get people all excited.
What I always loved about the movie, I always enjoyed them at the trailer park. Everything that happens at the trailer park is more enjoyable for me than the space part. Everything that goes on before he gets taken away, everything with Centauri, everything with Beta.
All the trailer park stuff is straight out of 1980s cliches as far as here's how you present a small town and here's small town America and all that. And I don't say cliches in a derogatory way.
Right.
It's just these were very common tropes in 1980s movies. You can see the same sort of thing in The Goonies, a jillion other movies.
Poltergeist, even any of those towns where the movie starts out with kids riding bikes or BMX bikes down the street kind of feel.
E.T., the whole thing, especially the whole opening where the main character or characters are sort of going through a little part of town, and there's this whole frantic saying of like, "Oh, hey, Mrs. Jones, yes, and let's exchange some witty banter. Oh, you got it, Mr. Brown, and here's some more banter. Like this small town is nothing but this big extended family." And
they gotta set the tone.
it did set the tone for the picture. This is the wish fulfillment aspect of it. Which one of us wouldn't love the idea of like, hell, even now, I'm so good at this game that I got noticed, and now they want me to be like, this intergalactic hero.
Right. And I did think it was clever how they they clarified in the movie that Centauri, who brings the game to Earth, wasn't supposed to do it that way. An arcade game is not how they recruit people to fight to become starfighters. In the war, it's sort of to become a starfighter is like for all these other planets, it's like something you strive for your whole life, whereas Earth isn't part of the community. So he's just looking to make some money.
Did it ever occur to you that it's against the law to recruit from worlds outside the Star League? Earth's in danger too, isn't it? And no, I did not use the Excalibur test. It was called a video game.
Yeah. He's kind of a wheeler and dealer. He's kind of a little bit of a scoundrel. The authorities don't even like that they brought Alex. He brought Alex in, but yeah, like you said, he's just trying to make a buck. He's not exactly trying to pull a fast one, but he's operating outside the boundaries of the way this Federation or whatever it was called typically does things.
He was my favorite character, Centauri.
What if the Wright brothers thought that only birds should fly?
And did Galoka think the Ulus were too ugly to save?
Who's Galoka?
Never mind.
That kind of stuff was fun. A lot of the little bits of galactic world building are fun. It's not a particularly deep mythology, but what's there works. There's the idea of the younger brother who has taken over or thinks he has taken over this great fleet. He's going to be the big badass. But they plant the nice seeds of there being, conflict among the bad guys that's going to eventually go wrong for him, which that was well done.
I and I alone command this entire Release me! I command you! You will pay for this with your life!
Did you like the ending with the famous line that everyone who loves this movie, when they lose and the bad guys, they're about to crash into the planet and they say, "What do we do?" And the thing just closes on his eye and he's like, "We die."
What do we do? We die.
I actually did like that. It was super cheesy, but again, like if you're going to watch an 80s movie, that's the kind of bullshit you should expect. If I had watched this as regularly as I had other movies from the era, like, The Goonies and some others, I know that this is probably one of the ones that I would return to every 5 or 6 years, the way I do some of those, some of the other movies that I'm nostalgic for. I'm certain that I would have had great nostalgia for this movie because it just has that vibe to it, where if you grew up watching this, you were probably guaranteed to love it. But even watching it now, I think it holds up pretty well. I definitely enjoyed watching it. There was a lot to like about it. It's relatively funny, but not in that goofy, slapstick, detracting from the movie kind of way. The characters that provide a lot of comic relief aren't annoying in the way that so many 80s comic relief characters often are. They're endearing. Again, the Navigator.
I'll have it all figured out by the time we reach the frontier.
What's that?
The frontier.
Centauri.
Are you the kind of kid who reads the last page of a mystery first? Who pesters the magician to tell you his tricks? No, of course you're not. That's why I'm not going to tell you.
The younger brother.
He's the only one I didn't really care for. But maybe it's because I grew up with 2 younger brothers.
I was going to say, he drove me nuts as a kid, but my younger brother loved him.
What the shit? I said back to sleep, Louis, or I'm telling Mom about your Playboys.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. This stuff early in the movie with him and his girlfriend was actually pretty well written, and it felt honest and it felt natural. Sort of her disappointment that he's always getting caught up in being the responsible one. I also feel like I've seen the girlfriend in a bunch of stuff.
Oh, yeah,
I haven't looked up her page.
She's the girlfriend from Weekend at Bernie's.
Oh, wow. That same year, she was in an adaptation of H.G. Wells' The Night of the Comet. That's interesting.
The Night of the Comet. That's what she's famous for, The Night of the Comet. Weekend at Bernie's, obviously, she's the girlfriend in that, which is probably what you recognize her more from than anything.
Never saw it.
What the?
For people who haven't seen it and who didn't grow up in the era, maybe people who are a little younger, or they grew up at the era, in the era, but they didn't happen to see it, I would also say it's still fun to watch now. I do feel like this holds up in a way that a lot of movies from that era don't, such as Ice Pirates.
I agree. Two totally different movies.
I wouldn't hesitate to recommend this to a science fiction fan who just wants to see a good, fun sci-fi romp. I actually think this would be great to remake today, but with like an online gamer.
They were going to make a sequel. They were going to have it where, because you know how he leaves with the girlfriend at the end. So they want it for years. They've been trying to work on a sequel where it's 30 years later and it's a new kid that they need to come back to save, the Federation. Not a remake, but a sequel to it.
I was almost expecting a little hint of Ender's Game in there. Orson Scott Card's sort of landmark science fiction novel Ender's Game came out in January of 1985. So it's highly unlikely that this movie had any influence on that. They just happen to have some similar themes in it. I mean, I was almost waiting for it to be revealed that when he was playing the arcade game, he was actually piloting remote ships the whole time.
Man, it would have got dark real quick if that happened.
Yeah, but yeah, they didn't go that.
Did you enjoy Death Blossom? The final move at the end with the.
Yeah, I did. I thought it was cool. I thought it was cool.
Death Blossom delivers only one massive volley at close range. Theoretically, it might overload the systems. Blow up the ship.
What are you worried about, Greek? Theoretically, we should already be dead.
I'm glad that we're doing this because this is one that's always been sort of in the back of my mind as far as like, oh, I should revisit that one of these days. But I knew I probably never would unless nudged to it. So I'm glad we're doing this series because it was a nudge that I'm glad to have gotten.
Listen, Centauri, I'm not any of those guys. I'm a kid from a trailer park.
If that's what you think, then that's all you'll ever be.
Well, you know what that means, don't you?
Oh God, he's punching it up.
My last assignment for you, I took you back to the 1960s for Jason and the Argonauts, which I guess based on conversations that we've had off camera might be the oldest movie you've ever seen.
Oh, by far.
Well, it will not be any longer. Because now we're going back to 1954. It's about time you begin your journey with Alfred Hitchcock. You will be watching 1954's Rear Window.
My only knowledge of this is through The Simpsons.
Yeah, because for people who don't know, I'm something of an Alfred Hitchcock aficionado and a fan of his work. I'm the co-author of A Year of Hitchcock, 52 Weeks with the Master of Suspense, as well as Hitchcock's Villains, Murderers, Maniacs, and Mother Issues. Both available now. Rear Window, yeah, it's Alfred Hitchcock time, baby.
It's time for me to start dipping my toes into the Hitchcock waters. I'll get back to you when I'm done.
Sounds good. So I guess I've been Eric and you've been Tig, and
thanks for hanging out at the movie club. So make sure to leave a like and a comment below about The Last Starfighter.
That's right, leave a comment about The Last Starfighter and we will choose the winner from the comments below, and this will be yours.